Kideaters versus Zoo BoyZ, Chapter 8, Part A, On the Island. When you're a child, a typical, predictable, average child, you naturally rely on and ask your parents or another adult for permission for everything. The boys in our story were average in many ways. David was even considered below average from a scholastic perspective. However, in many ways, these four were gifted in other ways that differed from the average everyday child. Where they lacked, others seemed to exceed, and where others fell short, they soared. One childhood characteristic they shared with all children was the desire to be independent. Most of the time, they thought they were best, or that they knew best, and they longed to follow their heart rather than the advice or directive of an adult supervisor. This was especially true for David. His father was one of the worst examples of responsibility, self-control, and care for others. This only magnified David's rationale and why he had to be his own man, his own leader, standing only on things he had learned and was still learning in the school of hard knocks. On the shoreline. As their temporary mode of transportation shot up, and away, Major Hightower was still scanning the land in front of them. Jeremy got up and helped Ronnie to his feet, too. They were brushing the sand off and shaking their heads like a dog to get it out of their hair. John noticed their leader and proclaimed, "If you see a Komodo dragon that has a dog's body, please don't shoot him. I know that sounds weird, but..." She gathered herself and secured her backpack as her face revealed a smirk. She responded with, "I read your file. Cute creative literary name you gave him. Mozo or Quasimodo?" All four boys replied in unison, "Quasi." She began to relax a bit more as she responded, "Cute." Then she jumped back into her role as mission team leader. Putting her guard fully back up, she commanded with authority, and yet in a soft voice, "Okay, boys, this is it. This is real life. Follow me. Stay behind my lead. We'll enter through the front. I have the code to open the main gate." They strapped on their backpacks, and she led them without looking back, assuming they would follow close behind. As mentioned at the beginning of this chapter, these boys knew, or felt they knew, more than their leader. In some ways they did know more. After all, they had already been to this island once before. Major Hightower had not. When she reached the front barrier, she had to keep trying the code that was supposed to open the gate. It wouldn't work. Dave gave his friends a look, non-verbally saying, "Follow the leader, my ass. Come on, dogs." They dropped off from behind her, found a weak spot in the fence, and just as before, David peeled up the fence and high enough for them to do an army man crawl under it. Once clear, they ran toward the front entrance to meet their designated leader on the other side. She heard something coming and grabbed her arsenal. The boy shouted, "Don't shoot! Don't shoot!" Soon, they were standing before her on the other side of the gated entrance. She scolded them, "Real smooth, boys. You're lucky I didn't shoot you." She kept her voice stern but soft. Look. I don't want to see any more of these type of shenanigans. Real smooth. Now, where did you enter from?" She hated to admit their way was better. John volunteered, "Follow the fence to your right. I'll meet you there." She agreed, but insisted, "Okay, but all of you meet me there. Stay together. We all need to remain together." The boys agreed. John especially knew what it was like to be separated from the gang. All four helped lift the fence for the Major to get in, although they had been on the island for a good 30 minutes. They had not seen a living thing. Not seeing did not mean those creatures weren't there. No doubt they were, just not visible yet. They may not have seen the inhabitants, but the beings living there saw them. While remaining on the inside of the zoo infrastructure, they felt animalistic eyes fixated on them, observing their every move, planning their retreat or attack, whichever their instincts dictated. As tension grew, and they all got more nervous, Ronnie's thoughts strived to go to a happy place then wander from there, any place but here and now. He thought of Charlotte Midriff, a girl that seemed different from the other girls at school. He wondered, what was she doing right now? Was she thinking of him too? The answer came quickly. Probably not. The thoughts his early puberty offered did not last long. He was still too young to be swept off his feet by the internal emerging chemical flood. Little did he know that in just 6 more months, he wouldn't be able to think of anything else but Charlotte and other girls like her. His mind then drifted to Tina, the tiny tiger in his pockets. He wondered if there was a way he could just keep her forever. He thought, if things were somehow switched around, I could stay here after everyone leaves. If only things were somehow switched backwards. Backwards, yeah. His young mind ran with the thought, and it led him to think of Tina, her size, how different she was, how opposite she was compared to other normal tigers. He was pretty sure she was getting smaller as she grew older. Ronnie thought, she's a taco cat. He smirked at his own thoughts, amusing himself. He didn't think of Tina as a literal taco, but this tiger was way smaller than even an average taco. Like the small ones his family got as appetizers, along with tiny hamburgers they called sliders. His mind jumped again. He already wasn't sure how his mind got into thinking of a taco cat, but Ronnie knew there was a name for it. Was it called a palindrome? Yes! He exploded verbally. Then he tried to explain his outburst. Taco cat, it's a palindrome. A word spelled the same way forward and backwards. Palindrome is the term for words like that. The boys had no idea where Ron's mind was coming from. Major Hightower had no idea either. She knew what he meant, what he was saying, but no idea why he brought it up. She asked herself, did he see something I missed? John spoke up. Yeah, like the word race car. It's spelled the same way, forward and backwards. Dave blurted out, who cares? Jeremy knew it was just a cute little mind game they played, trying to be preoccupied and not focus on the fear of things around them. He knew this very well. However, he remained silent. He was too afraid to participate. On to Chapter 8, Part B below.